Smoke covered the sky. The battlefield was no longer alive with soldiers, but with broken machines and burning metal. The ground shook from distant explosions. Silence came after each blast, heavy and painful, as if the world itself had stopped breathing. In the middle of the ruins, a small alien girl sat beside her mother's body. Her eyes were wide, full of tears, but she did not cry aloud. She pressed her little hand against her mother's cold fingers, whispering words in her alien tongue. Her voice was weak, almost broken. She was afraid of the silence, afraid of the footsteps she sometimes heard, afraid of being left alone forever. Above, enemy ships circled in the black sky, their lights moving like hungry eyes. The girl pressed herself lower to the ground, hiding behind a broken piece of armor. She was just a child, and yet, in this cruel place, she was the last of her family. From far away, another figure moved carefully through the ruins. His name was Captain Elias, a human soldier. His uniform was torn, his weapon scratched, his face marked with dust. But his eyes were sharp. He was not searching for enemies. He was searching for survivors. Elias knew he should not be here. His orders were clear: leave the battlefield, report back, and prepare for the next mission. But something inside him refused to leave this place without looking. Something told him there was still a life hidden here. Then he heard it, a faint cry. Not the cry of a soldier, not the cry of pain. The soft, trembling sound of a child. Elias froze. His heart beat faster. A child? Here? Impossible. Yet the sound came again, weaker, like a whisper carried by the wind. He followed it carefully, moving behind the broken walls and shattered machines, and then he saw her, a small alien girl, her skin pale blue, her eyes glowing faintly in the smoke. She was holding the hand of her fallen mother, her face pressed against the cold body. She looked too fragile to survive another day in this nightmare. Elias felt a sharp pain in his chest. He remembered his own daughter, lost long ago in another war. For a moment the battlefield disappeared, and all he saw was his little girl calling for him. The soldier in him wanted to turn away. The father in him could not. Slowly, Elias stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Hey, little one, don't be afraid." The girl's head shot up, her eyes widened in fear. She saw a human soldier, the enemy of her people. She pulled back, holding the cold hand of her mother tighter. Elias lowered his weapon. He knelt down, keeping his hands open, showing he meant no harm. "I will not hurt you, I promise." The girl shook her head, her lips trembling. She whispered in her language, words Elias did not understand. But her eyes told the story. She trusted no human. He moved closer, very slowly. His heart was heavy, fighting against his own training, against everything the war had taught him. But he could not leave her here, not alone. "Listen," Elias whispered, his voice breaking. "I know you don't trust me, but if you stay here, they will find you, and they will kill you. Please, come with me." For a long moment, the girl did not move. Her chest rose and fell quickly, her little hands shaking. She looked at her mother's face one last time, then back at Elias. Finally, with a tiny step, she moved toward him. Elias reached out carefully and she let him lift her into his arms. She was light, fragile, and still trembling. For the first time in a long time, Elias felt something he thought was gone: hope. But hope did not last long. A sharp sound cut through the silence, metal claws striking the ground, red glowing eyes scanning through smoke. Patrol drones. Elias turned, clutching the girl tightly. The machines had spotted movement. Their red eyes locked on him like hunters finding prey. The sound of charging weapons filled the air. He cursed under his breath. He had only seconds. "Hold on to me," he whispered to the girl, her little arms wrapped around his neck, her body shaking against him. Elias ran through the ruins, his boots pounding against the broken earth. Laser fire cut through the air, striking walls and shattered tanks. Sparks flew around them. The girl buried her face into his chest, too scared to look. Elias kept moving, his breath heavy, his mind racing. He had chosen this path, chosen to protect her. Now there was no turning back. Behind him, the drones screamed like monsters made of steel. Their weapons fired again and again, the battlefield lighting up in red flashes. Elias leapt over broken stone, slid behind a wall, and fired back with his rifle. One drone exploded, but two more kept coming. Their shadows stretched long in the smoke, their eyes never leaving him. The girl clung to him, whispering softly in her alien tongue. Elias could not understand her words, but he felt the meaning: fear, sorrow, and maybe a tiny spark of trust. He pressed her closer, his jaw tight. "You're safe with me," he said, even though he was not sure it was true. The sound of the drones grew louder. Elias looked at the girl, then at the endless ruins. He knew this was only the beginning. And as the fire lit up the night sky, Elias realized something. By saving this alien child, he had just declared war on his own orders, and maybe his own people. But he would not let her go. Not now. Not ever. The chase had begun. The ruins shook as the patrol drones searched. Their red eyes cut through smoke and darkness like knives. Elias pressed his back against the wall of a collapsed building, holding the alien girl tightly against his chest. Her small body trembled, her glowing eyes staring wide with fear. The machines crept closer. Their claws scraped metal, their scanners humming as they searched for life. Elias's heart pounded. One mistake, one sound too loud, and both of them would be dead. "Stay quiet," he whispered, his voice low and steady. The girl nodded faintly, pressing her face against him, trying to hide from the nightmare outside. Elias slowly raised his rifle, but the weapon shook in his hands. Not from fear, but from something else. He wasn't used to protecting an enemy, and yet, in this moment, the alien child in his arms felt more important than his own orders. The drones passed, their light sweeping across the ruins. Elias didn't move, not even when sparks rained down nearby. He waited, listening, until finally the sound of their claws faded into the distance. Only then did he move, pulling the girl deeper into the ruins. He found an old stairway leading down, broken and half covered with rubble. He pushed the stones aside, opening the way into darkness. The smell of dust and rust filled the air, but it was safer than the open battlefield above. He guided the girl down into the underground passage. The light grew dim, shadows stretching along the walls. Every drip of water echoed, every footstep felt too loud. The girl held onto his arm tightly, her breathing fast. Finally, they reached a small room. An abandoned shelter. Old supplies lay scattered, broken crates and faded symbols on the walls. Elias set the girl down gently. "You're safe here. At least for now," he said, sitting against the wall, catching his breath. The girl didn't answer. She stood in the corner, staring at him with untrusting eyes. She still saw him as the enemy. Elias rubbed his face, thinking of his daughter again. The way she had smiled before the war took her away. The pain cut deep, but he pushed it aside. This child needed him. "I know you don't understand me," he said softly, "but I made you a promise. I'll protect you." The girl tilted her head, listening. She didn't understand all his words, but she understood his tone. Gentle, not cruel. Still, she didn't move closer. Elias reached into his pack and pulled out a water flask. He placed it on the ground between them and pushed it gently toward her. "Drink. You need it." She hesitated, then slowly picked it up. She drank carefully as if expecting poison. When nothing happened, she looked at him with surprise. Elias smiled faintly. It was the first step, but the quiet did not last long. The ground shook again, dust falling from the ceiling. The girl's eyes widened. She whispered something in her alien tongue, her voice urgent. Elias couldn't understand, but the fear in her voice was enough. "What is it?" he asked, standing quickly. She pointed upward, then toward the walls. Her words came faster, sharp and frightened. Elias couldn't make sense of them until he felt it too. The shelter was vibrating, not from drones, not from footsteps, from something larger. Then the girl's voice dropped low, almost a whisper, but clear enough that he understood. "They are coming," she said in broken human speech. Elias froze. His stomach turned cold. They? Who? The girl looked at him, with glowing eyes full of dread. Her tiny voice trembled. "Not for me. For you." Before Elias could answer, the ceiling cracked. Heavy boots struck the ground above. Voices shouted. Human voices. Elias's blood ran cold. His own people had tracked him. The soldiers stormed the ruins above, their flashlights cutting through cracks in the ceiling. Dust rained down as they shouted orders. "Captain Elias." One voice thundered. "We know you're down there. Come out with the alien. Drop her now or you die with her." The girl gasped and backed away, her glowing pendant slipping from beneath her tunic. Elias caught sight of it, strange and ancient, shining faintly in the dark. For a second he realized this child carried more than just fear. She carried something important. But he had no time to think. The soldiers above began to break through the rubble, preparing to come down. The girl clutched her pendant, her eyes pleading. Elias gripped his rifle, his jaw tight. His own people wanted him dead now. All for saving a child. He looked at her, then at the crumbling stairway. His voice was steady, even though his heart raced. "They'll have to kill me first." The girl's eyes widened. Not with fear this time, but with something different, something closer to trust. Above them, the soldiers dropped down into the shadows. The room filled with light and dust. Guns aimed straight at Elias and the child. The commander's voice boomed, cold and merciless. "Last chance, Elias. Hand her over." Elias raised his weapon, standing in front of the girl, his shadow covering her small body. "Not today," he whispered. The air grew heavy, silence pressing down for one single breath. Then, the first shot rang out. The gunfire echoed through the underground shelter. Bullets struck the walls, sparks flying in the shadows. Elias pressed the girl behind him, firing back at the soldiers who had once been his brothers. The smell of smoke and dust filled the air. The girl clutched her mother's pendant tightly. Its glow grew brighter in the chaos, a strange blue light pulsing with every gunshot. She did not understand it fully, but she felt her mother's spirit inside it. The warmth of it gave her courage, even as fear gripped her small heart. Elias reloaded, his breath heavy. He knew he couldn't hold the humans back forever. They were too many, and yet when he glanced at the child hiding behind him, he felt his decision harden. He would not surrender her. Not to them, not to anyone. "Stay low," he told her, though he wasn't sure she understood. The girl nodded anyway. Suddenly, the soldiers stopped firing. Silence fell across the ruined shelter, broken only by the crackle of fire and the dripping of water. Elias frowned. Silence was more dangerous than noise. Then a voice came, calm and sharp. The commander. "Elias, stop this madness. That alien is nothing. She's the daughter of your enemy. You protect her and you die as a traitor." Elias didn't answer. His finger tightened on the trigger, but he held back. The girl tugged at his sleeve. She whispered something in her alien tongue, eyes glowing with strange light. Elias couldn't understand her words, but then something impossible happened. The pendant in her hand flared brighter, and for a brief moment, the air shimmered. Elias blinked, his vision swimming. He saw a figure standing behind the girl, tall, proud and glowing faintly like a ghost. Her mother. The alien woman's face was calm, but her eyes were filled with sorrow. Her lips moved, speaking words Elias couldn't hear. The girl gasped and reached for the vision, her small hands trembling. "Mother," she whispered in her own tongue. Elias's chest tightened. He didn't believe in ghosts. But this was no trick of smoke or light. It was something more, something tied to the pendant. The girl pressed the pendant to her chest, and suddenly her mother's voice filled the room, clear and haunting. "My child, do not fear. Trust the one who stands before you. Elias froze. He had no idea how. He could understand the alien words, but in that moment the voice was inside his mind, translating itself. The girl's eyes filled with tears. She whispered back quickly, desperate, afraid. Elias couldn't follow her words, but he knew what they meant. She did not want to lose her mother again. The glowing vision placed a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder. Then she looked at Elias. You are human, but you carry the heart of a father, the ghostly voice said. Protect her. She is more than you know. Before Elias could speak, the vision faded. The light of the pendant dimmed, leaving only the frightened girl clutching it tightly. The silence broke. Soldiers moved again, boots crashing down the stairs. Elias snapped back into reality. He fired, forcing them back, but the weight of the vision pressed into his mind. What did it mean? More than he knew. The girl crawled closer to him, her eyes still wet with tears. She lifted the pendant slightly as if offering it to him. Elias shook his head. No, it belongs to you. But she insisted, pushing it toward him. When his fingers brushed the glowing crystal, he felt a strange surge of warmth rush into him. Not power, not energy. Something different. A memory of his daughter's laugh. A whisper of peace in the middle of war. The pendant was not just jewelry. It was something sacred. Elias, the commander's voice roared again from the shadows. Last warning. Drop the alien. Come out alive. Or die with her. Elias looked at the girl. She looked back at him, her tiny hands gripping the pendant. For the first time, there was no fear in her eyes. Only trust. I'm not leaving you, Elias said quietly. The girl nodded. Then the ceiling shook violently. Another blast ripped through the ruins. The soldiers stumbled as rubble crashed down. Dust filled the air, blinding everyone. Elias grabbed the girl and pulled her through a side tunnel, half collapsed and narrow. His body scraped against stone, but he kept moving. Behind them, voices shouted, weapons fired, and the commander cursed his name. The tunnel opened into another chamber. This one was old, filled with strange alien markings glowing faintly on the walls. The girl's pendant responded, shining brighter. Elias set her down, his chest heaving. He looked around at the glowing walls, at the alien symbols, alive with light. What is this place? He muttered. The girl stepped forward, her tiny hand reaching out to touch the markings. When her fingers brushed the wall, the room hummed as if something ancient had awakened. Elias stared, his heart racing. The pendant, the markings, her mother's ghostly warning. This child was not just a survivor. She was carrying a secret, something powerful. He knelt beside her, his voice steady. Whatever this is, I'll protect you, I swear it. The girl looked at him, and for the first time, she whispered in broken human words. Promise? Elias nodded firmly. Promise. But even as he spoke, distant voices echoed through the tunnels. The soldiers were not far behind. And now, Elias realized, they were not only after the girl, they were after the secret she carried. The underground chamber glowed with strange alien symbols. The blue light from the girl's pendant pulsed in rhythm with the walls, as if the place itself was alive. Elias stood guard at the entrance of the tunnel, rifle ready, listening to the distant shouts of soldiers drawing closer. The girl was kneeling beside the glowing markings, her small hands tracing the shapes. She whispered words in her alien tongue, soft and broken as if speaking to the memory of her mother. Elias didn't understand the language, but he understood the weight of her voice. Grief, hope, fear. Then came the echo of boots, heavy, sharp, and closing in. The commander's voice thundered through the tunnels, carried on the dust-filled air. Elias, you've gone too far. Step aside, give us the girl. Elias clenched his jaw. His rifle felt heavier than ever. He glanced at the child. Her glowing eyes met his, and for the first time he saw not only fear, but trust. She believed he would protect her. He whispered under his breath, I won't fail you. The soldiers appeared at the tunnel's edge, weapons raised. Their lights cut across the chamber, painting Elias in stark white. Dozens of rifles pointed at him, the girl directly behind his shadow. The commander stepped forward. His armor was dark and scarred, his face twisted with anger. He raised his hand and the soldiers froze, waiting for his order. "Captain Elias," he said coldly, "you are under arrest for treason. Surrender the alien, surrender the pendant, now." Elias's throat tightened. He had once respected this man. He had once followed every command without question. But those days were over. "She's just a child," Elias said firmly. "She's not a threat. She's alone. Look at her." The commander's face did not soften. His eyes flicked to the pendant glowing in the girl's hand. His voice dropped lower, almost hungry. "She is not just a child. That pendant is alien technology. Do you think we don't know what it can do? Give it to me, Elias, or I'll kill you where you stand." The girl gasped and held the pendant tighter. Elias stepped forward, blocking her completely with his body. "You'll have to kill me first," Elias growled. The commander smirked. "Then so be it." The order came sharp and fast. "Fire!" Bullets tore through the air. Elias dove behind, a stone column pulling the girl down with him. The chamber lit up with flashes of gunfire. Sparks flew as bullets struck the alien walls, leaving glowing cracks behind. Elias fired back, forcing the soldiers to scatter. His breath came heavy, sweat dripping into his eyes. He had fought many battles, but never like this, never against his own people. The girl clung to him, whispering, her pendant glowing brighter. Suddenly, the walls of the chamber began to hum louder. The alien markings lit up, responding to her fear. A shockwave pulsed outward from the walls, slamming into the soldiers. They staggered, shouting in confusion as their weapons flickered, some falling from their hands. Elias blinked in shock. "What? What did you just do?" The girl didn't answer. She didn't know herself. She only pressed the pendant tighter, eyes glowing with the same light. The commander cursed, regaining his balance. His rage burned hotter now. "So it's true. That thing is a weapon." "No," Elias shouted. "She's not a weapon. She's just a child." But his words were lost in the chaos. The soldiers regrouped, forming a circle. Elias realized they weren't just trying to kill him anymore. They wanted the girl alive. They wanted her power. He reloaded quickly, his eyes darting around the chamber. Escape. They needed escape. But the tunnel was blocked with soldiers, and the walls shook as more boots stormed closer. The girl tugged his arm. She pointed toward a crack in the chamber wall, narrow but glowing faintly with the same alien light. Elias understood immediately. A hidden passage. "Stay behind me," he whispered. He fired a burst of shots, forcing the soldiers back for a heartbeat. In that moment, he lifted the girl and ran toward the glowing crack. Bullets followed, sparking against stone. Pain flared across his shoulder as one struck him, but he didn't stop. With a final push, he slammed his boot against the cracked wall. The alien stone gave way, collapsing into a hidden tunnel. Light spilled out like liquid, flooding the chamber. The soldiers shielded their eyes, shouting. Elias pulled the girl into the glowing tunnel and disappeared into the light. Behind him, the commander's voice roared with fury. "Find them! Don't let them escape!" The tunnel sealed behind them, the alien walls closing like a living door. The sounds of war faded, replaced by silence. Elias collapsed to one knee, clutching his bleeding shoulder. The girl knelt beside him, her tiny hands glowing faintly as she pressed the pendant close. The wound stopped bleeding as warmth spread through his body. He looked at her in disbelief. "You saved me." Her glowing eyes met his, and for the first time, she whispered clearly in broken human words. "Family. Protect family." Elias felt his chest tighten. He had lost his daughter long ago, yet now, with this child at his side, he felt something he thought was gone forever. But he also knew the truth. He was no longer a soldier of his people. He was a traitor, and the entire human army would be hunting him. He stood slowly, rifle in one hand, the girl holding tightly to the other. "Then it's just us," he whispered, "against everyone." The tunnel stretched before them, glowing with alien light. A path into the unknown. Elias took a deep breath. The war outside was not finished, but the real battle, the battle for the child's future, had only just begun. The alien tunnel glowed faintly, its walls alive with soft blue light. The air was warmer here, almost gentle compared to the smoke and ash above, but Elias could barely feel it. His shoulder burned where the bullet had torn through flesh. Blood soaked his uniform, dripping onto the strange stone floor. He staggered, gripping the wall for balance. The little alien girl walked beside him, clutching his hand tightly. Her glowing pendant pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, as if it was alive. Elias tried to stay strong, but his vision blurred. Each step grew heavier, his breath sharp and ragged. He had fought through pain before, but this was different. He wasn't fighting for orders. He was fighting for her. Finally, his knees buckled. He fell to the ground, his rifle clattering beside him. The girl gasped, dropping to her knees. She pressed her small hands against his wound, her eyes wide with fear. She whispered quickly in her alien tongue, her voice desperate. But Elias could not understand her words. He forced a weak smile. Don't cry, little one. I'm not leaving you, not yet." The pendant flared brighter. The girl lifted it, pressing it against his wound. At first, nothing happened. Then, warmth spread through Elias's body, slow and steady. The pain eased. The bleeding slowed. His breathing steadied. Elias stared in shock. What is this?" The girl looked into his eyes, and for the first time her voice formed broken human words. Mother's gift. Heal. Elias's chest tightened. She was using the last treasure of her mother to save him. Not herself. Him. "You should keep it," he whispered. "You need it more than I do." But the girl shook her head fiercely, tears running down her face. "No. You protect. You live." Her small hands trembled as she held the pendant against him. Elias placed his hand over hers, steadying her. "Thank you," he whispered. For a long moment there was silence. Only the soft hum of the alien walls, the faint glow wrapping them in strange comfort. Elias's wound closed slowly, the bleeding stopping completely. He sat up, weak but alive. The girl smiled faintly through her tears. She had saved him. But peace never lasted long in war. The tunnel shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling and a deep rumble echoed through the stone. Elias grabbed his rifle, pulling the girl close. "They've found us," he muttered. Far, away, voices shouted. The humans were forcing their way inside, breaking through the alien walls. Their hunt had not stopped. Elias stood, his shoulders stiff but stronger now. He looked at the girl, her glowing eyes steady. She no longer looked like a helpless child. She looked determined. "We need to move," Elias said. They walked deeper into the tunnel. The walls curved and opened into a vast chamber, larger than anything Elias had ever seen. Strange machines stood silent in the corners, covered in dust, but still glowing faintly. In the center, a crystal structure rose like a tower, humming with life. The girl gasped and ran forward. She placed her small hands on the crystal, her pendant glowing in response. The entire chamber lit up with blue light, symbols flickering across the walls. Elias's eyes widened. This isn't just a tunnel. It's a base. A sanctuary. The girl turned to him, her voice soft. "Mother say, safe place." Elias walked closer, staring at the glowing walls. He realized the truth. This was her mother's legacy. Not just for her people, but maybe for both species. But before he could think further, the sound of boots echoed again. The humans had broken through. Their voices grew louder, closer. The girl's eyes filled with fear. She pressed against Elias's side, clutching his arm. Elias knelt, looking her in the eyes. His voice was steady, even as the footsteps closed. "And listen to me, no matter what happens, I'll protect you, I promised, remember?" The girl nodded slowly. Her small hand reached for his, gripping tightly. "Promise." The chamber doors burst open. Dozens of soldiers flooded in, rifles raised. The commander's voice thundered. "Elias, end this now." Elias stood tall, shielding the girl with his body. He aimed his rifle, ready to fight. But then something happened. The crystal in the center of the chamber flared with light, brighter than before. The walls trembled and a voice filled the room. Not the commander's, not Elias's. A woman's voice. The girl gasped. Elias froze. It was her mother. Her voice, carried through the crystal, echoed in both alien and human tongues. War destroys all, but hope begins with one. The soldiers hesitated. The commander shouted for them to fire, but none moved. The voice was too strong, too haunting. The girl stepped forward, holding her pendant high. The light spread across the chamber, touching both her and Elias. For a moment it was as if her mother stood beside them again. Elias's chest ached. He felt the weight of his choice. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a protector. And this child was no longer just an alien girl. She was a symbol. The humans raised their weapons again, torn between orders and the strange power before them. The commander snarled, "Kill them both." The soldiers hesitated. Then the first shot rang out. Elias pushed the girl behind the crystal, firing back with all his strength. Bullets ripped across the chamber, the glow of the pendant shining brighter, wrapping them both in light. The war was no longer between two species. It was now between hope and destruction. And Elias knew where he stood. The chamber still glowed with the crystal's fading light. Smoke drifted through the broken doors, where human soldiers had tried and failed to overpower the strange alien force that had protected Elias and the girl. But the protection was not forever. The commander's furious voice echoed from the tunnels, rallying his men. "Do not let them escape. The traitor dies, the girl lives." Elias knew what those words meant. They wanted her alive, not to save her, but to use her, to turn her pendant and her mother's secret into a weapon. He would never allow that. He grabbed the girl's hand. "We're leaving, now." The girl nodded, clutching the pendant to her chest. Her glowing eyes were wide with fear, but also something stronger, determination. They ran into a side passage, the tunnel stretching endlessly in front of them. The air grew colder as they moved, and the sound of boots followed close behind. Soldiers were everywhere now, their flashlights sweeping across the alien walls. The chase had begun. They climbed through ruins of ancient halls, slid beneath half-collapsed arches, and stumbled into caverns lit by alien fireflies that floated like stars. At every turn, Elias fired short bursts from his rifle, slowing the hunters behind them. At every turn, the girl held tighter to his arm, never letting go. But the soldiers were not the only ones after them. From the far side of the tunnels came a different sound, metal claws scraping stone. Red lights flickered in the darkness. Alien machines, awakened by the pendant's energy, had begun to hunt as well. They did not care if Elias was human or the girl was alien. To them, both were intruders. Caught between two enemies, Elias tightened his grip on his weapon. His voice was calm, but his chest was heavy. "They're trying to trap us." The girl looked up at him, whispering in broken words. "Where? Go." Elias scanned the tunnels quickly. His eyes caught a faint draft of wind through a crack in the ceiling, an exit. "There," he pointed. "We climb." The climb was brutal. Elias's shoulder ached with every pull, his muscles burning. The girl was light, but carrying her slowed him down. He lifted her higher, telling her to hold onto the rocks. "Don't look down. Just keep climbing." She obeyed, her small hands shaking as she gripped the stone. Behind them, soldiers shouted, their flashlights growing closer. From below, the alien machines hissed, their claws sparking against the walls. The world narrowed to the sound of their breathing, the scrape of stone, and the rush of Elias's heartbeat. Finally, they reached the surface. Elias shoved the girl, up first, then dragged himself into the open. Fresh air hit his lungs. Stars stretched across the sky above, vast and endless. But the ground was no safer. The ruins of an alien city spread before them. Towers broken, streets empty, the silence, broken only by the distant thunder of war. The horizon glowed with fire where armies clashed. The girl stood beside him, her eyes reflecting the flames. She whispered, "Home. Gone." Elias looked at her, his chest tight. He had lost his home once too. He understood her pain. He knelt, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone anymore. As long as I'm breathing, you have family." Her lips trembled, but she nodded. They moved quickly through the ruins, but the hunt never stopped. Human drones buzzed in, the skies above, their red scanners searching. Alien machines crawled through the streets, sniffing for the pendant's energy. Every corner was danger. Every shadow was a trap. Elias used every trick he knew: smoke, broken alleys, silence when footsteps drew near. He taught the girl to move like a ghost, to breathe slowly, to freeze when the machines passed. She learned quickly, her small body fitting into cracks where Elias could not. Together, they became shadows in a city of death. But no matter how far they ran, the hunters always returned. It was as if the world itself refused to let them go. At night they found shelter in a half-broken tower. Elias sat against the wall exhausted, while the girl curled up beside him. She pulled the pendant close, its glow soft like a heartbeat in the dark. Elias watched her silently. She had changed since he first found her. No longer only afraid, no longer only crying. She carried herself with quiet strength. And he felt something he had not felt in years, a reason to keep fighting. The girl opened her eyes slightly, whispering, "They never stop?" Elias shook his head. "No, not until we reach the end." Her hand found his. Small, fragile but warm. "We reach together." Elias smiled faintly, though his heart ached. He had lost his daughter to war, but this child had given him something back, something worth living for. Dawn came with thunder. Human transports rumbled across the horizon. Alien machines gathered in the streets below. Two armies, two enemies, both moving toward one place: the city. The girl rose, slowly, her pendant glowing brighter as if answering the storm. Elias stood beside her, gripping his rifle. The child whispered in fear and awe, "Big war, again." Elias nodded grimly. He could see it now, both sides preparing for the final clash. Tens of thousands ready to destroy each other, and in the middle of it all, the girl beside him. He looked at her, his voice steady. "If we fail, everyone dies." The girl's eyes shone with tears, but she didn't look away. She nodded, holding his hand tighter. Together they stepped forward into the heart of a war where the fate of two worlds would soon be decided. The ruins shook under the weight of marching armies. From the east came the humans, armored and armed, their war machines grinding across the broken city. From the west came the aliens, their weapons glowing, their banners raised for vengeance. And in the middle, on the shattered street between both forces, stood Elias and the alien girl. He could feel the ground tremble as the two armies drew closer. Their roars echoed across the battlefield. Soon, thousands would clash and fire would cover the world again. The girl's small hand clung to his. Her pendant glowed bright, brighter than ever before. Elias looked down at her. She was shaking, but she did not hide. Her glowing eyes watched the horizon with steady courage. Elias knelt beside her. His voice was calm, though the storm of war surrounded them. "This is it. We end it here. No more running." The girl swallowed hard. "If fail?" Elias squeezed, her hand firmly. "Then we fail together, but we don't give up." The armies halted at the edge of the ruins, staring across the broken street. Weapons raised, fingers on triggers. The commander of the humans stepped forward, his voice booming. "Elias, step away from the alien. This is your last chance." From the alien side, a general shouted in his own tongue, pointing at Elias. To them, the human soldier holding their child was a threat. Both sides wanted blood. Both sides wanted war. The girl looked up at Elias, her pendant pulsing like a heartbeat. She whispered, "Mother's words." "Now?" Elias nodded. "Yes. Now." She stepped forward, her tiny figure trembling but unbroken. She lifted the pendant high. Light poured from it, flooding the ruins. The armies shielded their eyes, weapons lowering as the brilliance spread across the battlefield. Then a voice echoed, clear, strong, and haunting, the voice of her mother. "War has taken too much, sons and daughters, fathers and mothers, but hope begins with one." The light spread wider, carrying her mother's final message in both human and alien tongues. Every soldier heard it. Every heart trembled. Elias stood tall beside the girl, his rifle lowered. He let the world see him not as a soldier, not as a traitor, but as a protector. One human who had chosen life over death. The silence that followed was heavy. Thousands of soldiers stood frozen, caught between orders and the truth shining before them. The commander's face twisted with rage. He raised his weapon, breaking the spell. "Do not listen! Kill them both!" The soldiers hesitated. Their hands shook. Some looked at each other, doubt spreading like wildfire. On the alien side, the general barked orders too, demanding the pendant. His soldiers raised their weapons, but their eyes betrayed fear. The girl's voice suddenly rose, breaking the silence. Broken, trembling human words, but strong. No more war. Family. For all. Her cry cut through the battlefield, sharper than any blade. Elias placed his hand on her shoulder, his voice following hers, deep and steady. "She is a child. She asks for peace. If we ignore her, then what are we fighting for?" The air was heavy. The commanders screamed for blood. But the soldiers, the ones who had lost family, who had buried children, who had grown tired of endless war, they began to lower their weapons. One by one. First, a human dropped his rifle. Then an alien lowered his spear. Then more. Until lines of soldiers stood with weapons pointing at the ground, refusing to fire. The commanders shouted, furious, but their voices were drowned in the silence of rebellion. The girl's pendant glowed, brighter, her mother's voice whispering one last time. Hope restored. "My child, live." The light faded, leaving only the child and Elias standing hand in hand. The battle was over without a single shot. The armies stood still, not as enemies, but as survivors. The commanders, powerless and enraged, stormed away, their voices lost in the crowd. Elias looked down at the girl. She stared at the soldiers lowering their weapons, her lips trembling. Listen," she whispered. Elias nodded. His chest ached with pride and sorrow. "They listened because of you." The girl blinked back tears. Slowly, she slipped, her hand into his again. Her voice was soft but filled with warmth. "You are my family now." Elias closed his eyes, the weight of her words sinking deep into him. He had lost his daughter long ago, but here in the ashes of war he had found another reason to live. Not as a soldier, not as an enemy, but as a protector. The sun broke through the smoke above, casting golden light across the battlefield. For the first time in years, it felt like dawn, not just of a new day, but of a new beginning. Elias stood with the girl at his side, the armies watching in silence. Hope had been restored, not by power, not by orders, but by a child's voice and a human's promise. And in that fragile peace, Elias whispered the words only she could hear. "You'll never be alone again." The girl smiled faintly, her pendant glowing one last time. Together they walked forward, toward a future where hope, not war, would lead the way.